all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
full
to
macro
enter a long trade.
Hello, crypto friends. I hope you're doing so well that it hurts. Not really that much, but so well that you feel good. We're going to look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, BCH, BNB. I got some swag. Check it. TheChartGuys hoodie on the back. Good things. I don't know if you can see that. But this is limited edition. We'll eventually get some stuff for other people, but just playing around with different styles and different quality and things like that. It's actually pretty warm and comfortable and soft, and I don't think it's made out of plastic. So it's pretty cool. One thing I want to talk about before we get into it here, and a little bit of a lesson in it, you guys got to read this message. So someone finally snapped today, and we hit his information, but your stupid ideas have destroyed me. Thanks so much for your stupid advice. You have destroyed my balance of my account. Your stupid advice in January 2018, everyone is talking about Head and Shoulders. Then you say, we don't have to worry about that. Thanks so much. I now have lost over 200,000. I have lost more than 75% of my money. I am reporting your company for false information and manipulation. Enjoy the karma coming, you piece of love. So, obviously, I'm not laughing at this guy's misfortune, but he clearly has no accountability. If you have been watching our videos, you know that I would never say anything about disregarding support levels on a chart or not having a stop loss or not managing risk. I was talking about the top of Bitcoin being in and to be protective from about 12,000 onward. So clearly this person is completely deranged from reality. And where has he been for 8 months with all the talk of protect? If you've been watching, you know that clearly this person has not been watching, but it's the kind of scenario where this is what happens to people. So they get in a scenario, there's two kinds of people. They lose money in the market because they get in and they don't know what they're doing. One group of people will hold accountability and say, okay, I need to, ready? This is ego. I, me, mine. I need to figure things out. I need to teach myself. I need to get better at what I'm doing. I made a mistake. And then there's the other group of people that are looking out there for anybody to blame. So the fact that this person can blame me for their $200,000 loss from January is just absolutely absurd. But you can only imagine, all the terrible emotions that are going through his body and his brain right now that are really making rational thought not really work well. So this is the state of the current cryptocurrency market. And I'm highlighting this, number one, because it was a bit comical. Again, not the fact that he's losing, but the way he presented himself. And we've never heard from this person before. And number two, I'm pointing it out because this is the state of the crypto market. Okay, this person waited 8 months to say anything, and he said something today. So that has to mean something, right? People reaching their breaking point, maybe. Who knows? But a little bit of interesting information for the day. So we'll see if we get shut down. Bitcoin on the daily time frame. So we did get a break to lower lows. The daily bear flag got confirmation and follow through. So I was talking about how I exited my position when we were starting to see some signs of weakness because the daily chart looked like a bear flag. It got the follow through. We pulled back not too significantly. We broke 6,000, but the bulls bounced off of 5,900. So we have support of 5,777 and 5,900. Obviously, the bears are still in full control at this point. The thumbnail of the video is burden of proof solely on the bulls. They have to prove to us follow through. We have a new resistance level. If the bulls and Bitcoin cannot break 65.45, the top of this bounce, any bounce is just a lower high, and it keeps the bears in full control. So the only way that we're going to see shorts begin to cover, at least on the daily time frame, is by breaking that level. So that is now our benchmark that the bulls have to break to put any kind of pressure on the shorts. The shorts right now, I don't have the chart up, but it's the highest that the shorts on Bitfinex have been since the chart started in 2017, and it's only been this high about 6 other trading days. So that is notable, a notable amount of shorts, but again, they're still comfortable at this point. So we're looking now on the shorter term timeframes. Guess where we are rejecting from? The 4-hour exponential resistance, multiple 4-hour inside bars. If we get a bull break, Our sights are set on resistance of 65.45. There's that level. And we will see if the bulls are able to even get a bull break. If they don't, we're going to drop down. It's a bear flag, right? So the RSI levels have cooled off to a point where we can absolutely see another leg down. And the daily RSI is at a point where if we do see another leg down, the daily RSI will be oversold and the 4-hour will get oversold as well. So absolutely, the bears can see further downside from where we stand right now. We are not too oversold, and it's all about 5,900 and 57.77. Short-term resistance, we're looking at 61.45 and 61.70 to try and get over these exponential resistance levels. We also just got a little whale alert that someone moved 18,000 Bitcoin to BitMEX. That's something to keep an eye on. Doesn't necessarily mean they're dumping, but that's a significant amount of coins that someone is moving over. So have to be watching for that as well. Ethereum, all out free fall mode yesterday. Probably the most brutal I have ever seen Ethereum in terms, and there's that chart from this morning. Beaten, battered, and bloodied is a good way to describe it. The bear flag on the weekly time frame was just an absolute dump. The daily chart at this point continuing to set lower highs day after day after day. We're talking 15, 18. We're talking lower highs now, roughly 20 plus days. I'm not going to count everyone out. Someone did show me a neat little trick. If you hold shift and then pull it to the right rather than going up and down, you can measure the days. So that's a cool little trick. 21 days, it says. So bottom line is the bears are in full control. We're watching for a volume climax. This candlestick's going to close in a couple hours, and we can see, again, this is Coinbase, the highest volume that we've seen since all the way back in April. And just to compare real quick, what is it like on exchanges with more significant volume? Bitfinex, high volume, but nothing extremely notable. Comparatively, we're looking at 388, and we did see some higher volume back in May and June. So not a ton. It's definitely a climax in terms of the last month of trading action, but looking back historically, it's not anything that's absolutely astounding. So what we're looking for, and I did start to scale into a little bit of Ethereum yesterday, looking for an oversold bounce, and then quickly change that game plan because Bitcoin's RSI levels are not oversold. So Bitcoin, if we dump down and break 5,900, Bitcoin can drop easily to 5,700 or below because of its RSI levels. If that happens, Ethereum's going to get dragged down with it. And this is one of those scenarios where the RSI levels can get to absolute extremes due to correlations. We know that Bitcoin is king right now, and that drop would continue to see Ethereum drop, even though the RSI levels, right now the daily is at 17. The 4-hour RSI last night was down at about 11. The hourly RSI was single digits. So we have the hourly exponential resistance continually rejecting Ethereum. We have resistance of 264.41, 267.88, and then 272. That's the most important level for me. 272, that's the high of the initial bounce attempt. And here on the 4-hour time frame, you can see we're nowhere even near the exponential resistance, which has rejected the last two attempts very, very clearly. So again, burden of proof is on the bulls. Bears don't have to prove anything. All they have to do is keep on keeping on, which they've been doing really well. So I entered into Ethereum a bit early and then realized this is not a good idea. So I entered with an average at about 274. And then rather than scaling in, I said, all right, I'm done with this and going to wait for a kind of climax flush. I want to see my aggressiveness buying oversold dumps matches the bears. So if we're seeing a lower high, lower low, little bear flag type pattern, I'm not aggressively buying because that's not aggressive. Whereas when we see the all out flush, extreme volume, and a very significant push down, that's when I'm more comfortable laddering into those buys. So on this 3-hour span, we dropped from 284 down to 250, well over 10% in just a few hours. So I ended up with my initial position, and again, just a small amount of the cash in my account, ended up with about a 30% position at 274. I then ended up flipping some of this little bounce. We did end up bouncing from 250 up to 272. So flipped a little bit of that to lower my cost basis and also set a little bit of an exit at break even. My cost basis then dropped it down to 271. And I currently still have about a 18% position with an average of 271. And I'm not extremely worried about that position. It's the size. Again, when I'm looking at a longer term swing play as opposed to a scalp play, if I'm scalping and I'm trading Tesla or a stock or Bitcoin when it was really liquid and I'm looking for just short term moves, that is when I'm using a lot more capital and I'm a lot more protective, right? I'm going to keep a very tight stop loss, and I'm going to lock in my gains very quickly because there'll be significant gains because it's with the full position. When I'm doing a longer term trade or a swing trade, I'm using less capital so I can have more wiggle room before it starts to be, a significant loss on that trade. So because there's no clear support level, or there wasn't at that point in time, we now have clear support levels down in the low 250s on Ethereum. But I wanted to use a smaller position and allow for that wiggle room. And why I'm entering this position is because, again, the daily chart is extremely due for a bounce. The volume is extremely high. We're at historical bounce levels. The RSI, this is where we were in April when we bounced 100%. I'm certainly not expecting that kind of move this time around because Bitcoin bounced very significantly in April as well. And we have no signs of Bitcoin bouncing right now. So not going to be looking for much upside if Bitcoin's not going to be playing along. But I am fine having a small position at this point. Yes, it is trying to catch a falling knife, but I could see this price drop down to, 240, and I would still be all right with the size of that loss because the position is so small comparative to my overall account. So that's just what I'm doing. I'm not suggesting anyone else do that. And again, there are situations where I trade around my different plays and lower that cost basis, lock in short-term gains, and I'm just very actively trading around while patiently waiting for a more prolonged bounce. We know the daily chart's going to bounce 20% very easily on Ethereum. It's just a matter of when, and the stars have to align to a certain degree with Bitcoin bouncing and the correlation helping as well. So if we are short, let's just look at these two names from a short position. Obviously, the entry for Bitcoin, the 4-hour exponential resistance, has been a decent play. We can also look for a break of the inside bar to potentially lead to further downside. Where we stand right now, we are, like I said, we cooled off RSI levels, but because the daily RSI is so close to oversold, even if I was a bear, I would still be looking to lock in gains shorter term because we don't have as much downside to go before we reach oversold levels. So that's just my style personally. I don't even take short trades when we're in oversold conditions on the hourly time frame. I'm talking about my general rule of thumb when I'm trading stocks. If the 5-minute RSI is oversold, I'm not going to go bearish if the hourly RSI is oversold. And if I do go bearish, it's very, very short term. So my bottom line is, if I were entering a bear break of this 4-hour inside bar, I would be looking to lock in profit, $100 to the downside just to remain protective. Or you could set your stop loss to break even and hope the trend rides out with you. As far as Ethereum goes, I wouldn't take a short entry unless the daily chart bounces. And again, I'm never going to enter a short position with a daily RSI at 17. It's just not in my style of game plan. So at this point, I would not be shorting Ethereum. If we see a bounce, I would short the lower high. I would short when the RSI cools off and when we top out, because we know a daily lower high is going to come when we bounce, just like Bitcoin. We knew a daily lower high was going to be coming for Bitcoin when we bounced, and we didn't even get that far. So that's the scenario where I would be looking to short ETH if we get a little daily bear flag to cool things off, similar to what Bitcoin did, but that's not close to happening right now at this point. If you are already in a position, that's a different story. You're very comfortable. You can use the 4-hour exponential levels or the hourly lower highs if you want to keep a really tight stop. There's so many different ways that you can establish a game plan depending on when you entered, what your risk tolerance is, how much, are you in the profit? Can you just put a stop loss at break even? One of my favorite kinds of trades is to go with the trend and set a stop loss at break even and let the trade play out. Because you have the trend in your favor, then you can be a lot more comfortable. When I am against the trend, I take profit sooner. That's that. So Ethereum, trying to get over these exponential resistances, 4-hour time frame. If we get a bull break on the hourly, we know to zoom out to the 4-hour, and we'll just be watching the exponential resistances at that point. And we're not really anticipating a whole lot without Bitcoin following through. There's these little bursts on the 5-minute time frame, like right here, where we can see some short covering action, and we're not really seeing the same kind of action on Bitcoin. So there definitely is some discrepancy between the two, but overall there is enough of a link, enough of a correlation that we're not going to be expecting Ethereum to see a significant bounce with follow through unless Bitcoin is doing it as well. BCH USD on the daily time frame, or this is the weekly chart. I have to use Bitfinex because Coinbase doesn't have enough history, and we're looking down at support of 415 from here. So bear flag here was confirmed as well. Daily chart still very weak. The daily RSI is down at 23. 4-hour time frame resistance. Really inside bar currently forming, and the hourly time frame has the most clear resistance, similar to Ethereum, just rejecting from these exponential moving averages, and I'm looking at resistance of 502. So 500 psychological and 502.20. support is down at 476 and 471.10. So similar, no sign of the bulls. Cannot give them any benefit of the doubt. If we're entering positions right now, we're doing the bears a favor, and we're not doing ourselves a favor because we're playing counter the trend, and that is not a good idea. Same thing though, I would not be looking to enter BCH bearish because the daily RSI is so extended to the downside. And yes, maybe we miss a leg down, but when I say rule of thumb, I'm thinking 5 to 10 year span over and over and over again of the same situation. So if I have daily oversold RSI and I short, sometimes it's going to work out, but I want to know what is the highest probability chance. And if I look over a sample size of 10 years and 100 different plays, if I short when the daily RSI is oversold, am I going to have more winners or more losers? And the answer is far more likely to have more losers. That's why I stick to rules of thumb to make sure that I'm staying in a general sense with the odds in my favor as much as I can. BNB, very notable bear break. We were watching the key weekly support, so was everybody else, and the bears jumped on it as soon as that broke. 1161, 1164, it broke, and very quickly we dropped 25%. More than that, 30%. So at this point, we are now oversold on the daily. When's the last time BNB was oversold on the daily chart? And the answer is the initial pullback from the all-time high. This does not happen often. This is very notable. Again, the cryptocurrency morale is very, very low, as that email shows us. And we are watching for the potential capitulation kind of scenario. I don't think we're there, but maybe if Bitcoin drops down to 5,000, maybe we get there. Pretty much as soon as people reach their breaking point, that's usually when the bottom's going to be found. 4-hour time frame, bounce attempt on BNB, inside bars, very similar to Bitcoin at this point, hourly exponential resistance, trying to get over it right now, bit of an equilibrium. So low, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high, higher low, lower high, you know the routine. Support is 877, resistance is 920. So a tightening range. We're looking for a break. If we get the break, we zoom out to the 4-hour time frame. Exponential resistance will be the next target. And we are cooling off the RSI levels. This is a potential bear flag on the 4-hour. Always have to prepare for worst case scenario if you're in a trade. If you're bearish, what's worst case scenario? If we start seeing liquidated positions, need to see a stop loss in place to protect yourself. And obviously worst case scenario for the bulls is just perpetual bear flags and follow through with another leg down. One more check-in on Bitcoin as we're watching this key tightening range. Equilibrium here as well with our high of the bounce, higher low on the hourly, lower high. Haven't pulled back for a higher low yet, but if we can't break 61.45, we're going to look for a higher low compared to 590 to continue tightening this range up, and we'll look for a break tonight. Probably, well, of course, when I post the video, we'll see things pick up, I'm sure, but if that were not the case, I would say sometime in the next 6 hours, we will see a clear break of this hourly pattern. That's just a rough estimation. And that's where we stand. So I appreciate you all guys all watching. Something to note as well, Canadian MJ, I've made references plenty of times. The sector is falling apart just like crypto. And it tells me that there is a shift of money moving away from speculative assets. So Canadian MJ is about as speculative as you can get in the stock market just because it's the birth of a new industry. And obviously crypto is speculative. But here we have APH. So APH, let's look at the weekly charts. From the all-time high, doesn't this look familiar? It should. So here's the all-time high and where we pull back to today, down 65%. ACB, another one, from the high to where we stand today. And we're looking at a loss of 65%. WEED, sector leader. Holding up much better, but has still pulled back at this point 35%. So again, it's very similar. Why are these charts so similar when crypto has nothing to do with Canadian MJ? Because charts track emotion. Emotion is consistent across all sectors, all traders. If there's humans involved, there's emotions involved. And that's why these charts work. So again, just a little quick, I loved how similar that chart looks. Let's just overlay. There's APH on the weekly time frame. And let's look at ETH on the weekly time frame. So just right back and forth. Look at that. It's just too perfect of a comparison. Do this all night. So I hope you all continue to do good things out there. At the end of the video here, we've got some more Redwoods footage. This is when I was talking about where I was camping out, and pretty much the whole trip I slept outside because the tent was really small and the other two clowns kept me awake. So I slept outside on a fallen redwood tree, which was massive, right next to a creek. And that was one of my favorite camping spots. A nice little nook in that tree. So this is us hanging out, getting ready for camp. And I will see you all tomorrow. Remember to stay protective and use those stop losses so you don't come and blame me 8 months from now.
Mallows. Beetles. Hey, what are you eating over here? I won't eat any, I just want to know what you're eating. Alright. Sun's setting.
Best sunset ever. Yeah,